Well, I think we respect the judgment of the courts, and you know, we'll look forward to seeing how the situation evolves.
So does that mean you still are active in this case against Lisa Cook? That it's not necessarily something that the White House is going to back off of?
It's saying that I don't make law enforcement decisions.
Okay, Director Hassett, understood that. I still just, on this point of what the Fed should do and their ability to cut, we had core PCE crawl back up to 3.3% in April. Headline figures get to 4% in May. I just wonder where you see some of the partisan concern, because most people in that position would just pause and wait and not try to push in rate cuts. Well, I just want to know where in the data you're seeing, besides Jay Powell staying on, I understand your point there, where else are you seeing some concerns of partisanship or at least dismay or direct action that seems a partisan concern, because most people in that position would just pause and wait.
All right, I apologize for the ones that are watching on YouTube. I'm usually more organized than I am today. For some reason, I had some feed issues visually, and then all of a sudden the sound also cut out. I apologize. We're live streaming on Rumble and YouTube and on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. I apologize for the technical difficulties for the ones that are watching on YouTube. Thank you for joining. Just to recap, I'm taking a look at natural gas. I'm shorting it. I am not going into oil today because of the long weekend, and I'm not going into equity market because of the long weekend. It's better to have dry powder for next week to, take tactical actions so you can make some money. But I see some opportunity potentially in natural gas, so I'm watching that today. Thank you for joining. I apologize for the technical difficulties on YouTube.
To let go various heads or various senior people of different independent regulatory bodies within the United States. Does this give you and the team more firepower? Is there anyone else you are concerned about at some of these agencies that you would like to see let go?
The president has built an amazing team of people that I love working with every day. And I think that the Supreme Court judgment is just that within the executive branch, the chief executive has the right to build a team that he thinks he can work with. And I think we've got a team that's firing on all cylinders right now. Whether there's another person that the president thinks that could be changed out and improve the caliber of the team, that's his judgment. But I think it's an appropriate decision that the executive branch leader, the president of the United States, gets to pick his own team.
All right, Director Hassett, we're going to have to leave it there. We really appreciate your time this morning. White House National Economic Director Kevin Hassett, please enjoy. Hopefully you get a long weekend. Please enjoy your long weekend and your 4th of July. All right, let's get a check on the stock market.
Okay. S&P 500 is trading at 7,521. I still have a long-term target year end at 7,800 to 8,000. Once it hits 8,000, we need to reassess, take a look at the landscape, make sure that we want to continue, or maybe we want to put some money aside waiting for a correction. But we don't know that yet. We need to understand the price curve. But my projection for year end is at 7,800 to 8,000. So it behooves you to accumulate shares, all right, if you haven't already. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the vitamin C and magnesium. Vitamin C and magnesium will help boost up your immune system, help with your skin, and also help with brain function. Magnesium is super important for brain function. And the vitamin C, when you take it with the collagen, will cross-link. When you drink filtered water, it will cross-link and improve your dermal layer. Magnesium and zinc boosts up that immune system and helps with brain function. Please take my advice and stack these together. It's very important. Immune system and brain function. Turmeric brings down inflammation, soaks up free radicals. Ashwagandha root helps to control cortisol levels and blood glucose levels. Lignans boosts up that immune system and endocrine system, soaks up free radicals, and brings down inflammation. By bringing down inflammation, you're going to recover from your workouts better. If you have arthritis, bringing down inflammation is going to help the arthritis. Bringing down inflammation, soaking up free radicals will help with the immune system and brain function. So please go to my store, and you can take them separately, but I highly recommend stacking them. They're synergistic. And by stacking them, you're going to be able to improve exponentially your cardiovascular health, your brain function, your immune system and endocrine system. Now you can take them separately, but they are synergistic. Now, if you take a look at biochemistry and how your body works, it's through synergistic pathways. It's not just one compound. If you just only focus on one compound, yeah, it may help, but you don't get the full effect by targeting it from different angles, from different vectors. So please go to my store, get the lignans, the ashwagandha root, and the turmeric, stack them together, and it's a great way to slow down the aging process. Make sure you use discount 5 and you'll save $5. And oh, by the way, pay attention to what I'm doing in the market. You'll make some money. And then when you make some money, save it, help support your family, and by the way, buy some of the products that I have so you have a better life instead of being dependent on pharmacopoeia. All right, with that, let's pivot over to Fox News talking about Justice Thomas. I think this is a clip about the birthright citizenship.
This is what justice looks like.
Celebration on the steps of the nation's highest court after a long, hard fight to protect women's sports.
Oh, this is the women's
and
sports.
it ended with a victory yesterday. The justices voted 6-3 along ideological lines to uphold 2 state bans on biological males in women's sports. The decision essentially allows every state to make up its own mind on the matter. Senior Justice Clarence Thomas said this in his concurring opinion, quote, "Men and boys with gender dysphoria are not women or girls, even if they believe that they are. Sex is an immutable biological characteristic.
Absolutely.
It is binary."
Absolutely, and you need to focus on the karyotype, not the phenotype. Now, in addition to this, just look at the landscape with DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, which is, I think, a different party. It's not really Democratic Party, but it's a parasite living off of the Democratic Party and getting funding from it. But DSA is starting to spread across the country. It somewhat started with Mondani in New York, but it's metastasizing across the country. It's hitting regions like the Midwest, the West Coast, even in the South. You gotta worry about this. It's not just a New York thing. Now, with this court ruling with women's sports, which I agree with the court ruling, that men should not be in women's sports. But they're kicking it to the states to make the decision. So as we start seeing red states or moderate blue states becoming more DSA, what will happen is that the state legislatures will codify that it's okay to have males, biological males, playing in women's sports. This is very similar to what was going on in the United States in its early foundings, where certain states were slave states and certain states were not slave states. And that was more of an economic thing. You know, slavery in certain states was codified to maintain the agricultural economy. And there was a war that happened to bring back some sanity into the Union and abolish slavery. Now, I'm not saying there's going to be a civil war because of boys playing in female sports, but there's a similarity here. We're at the 250th anniversary of our nation. All right? 1776, the Declaration of Independence. July 4th. And inside that was sowing the seeds of some states not really being fully embracing of all men are created equal. All right? And it allowed for slavery to be codified in some of the states. Now, it's understandable at the time of what was happening that some people that were in the northern colonies that weren't aligned with slavery thought, okay, over time it'll die out. And truthfully, it did die out. It took a war to do it, to speed it up, but slavery did die out in the United States. But by having this idea that it's a state issue, it will start strengthening some states that are captured by DSA, by the Democratic Socialists of America. And they'll become more socialistic, and they'll push for the LGBTQ agenda. They'll continue to push this. All right. And there'll be more fracturing of the country. This is the reason why I said about the Civil War and the early foundings of the country. There was a lot of tension from 1776 all the way to 1865 of this slavery issue. There's tension starting to build of states that are more capitalistic versus states that are turning communistic. And there's a tension that's starting to build. Now, it took approximately less than 100 years for us to have a civil war since the birth of our nation, assuming the birth of the nation is at 1776. In less than 100 years, will we see a civil war because of this fracturing between capitalism and communism? The erosion of family, erosion of patriotism, erosion of religion. If you pay attention to DSA, they don't believe in the Enlightenment. They don't believe in a constitutional republic. They don't believe in God, country, and family. They're relativists. They're communists. They want to change the language. They even want to change the definition of biology. And by the way, if you start, they want freedom of speech until you disagree with them. So they want to curtail the First Amendment. And when you curtail the First Amendment and you say something that they don't like, well, they're going to punish you. They're going to ticket you. They're going to take away your ability to have a job or have credit or be able to bank. And they want to erode the Second Amendment, which if you pay attention to the Federalist Papers, the Second Amendment is about the absolute firewall to protect the First Amendment. Now, the country is going towards another civil war. We've reached that 250-year cycle that's aligned with the rotation of Pluto around the sun. Why we're tied to Pluto, who knows? But the thing is that there seems to be a pattern that is starting to emerge here. Now, because of technology, because of information sharing, it's probably going to be sped up with AI, with stress, with people getting jobs, and the cost of living is probably, all of this is going to be sped up. Back during the Civil War times, most of the economy was agrarian. Well, we don't have that now. Many people are living in suburbs or in cities. We have an industrialized economy and a service economy. It's not agriculture anymore. So things are sped up. But the tension is building. We're going to see another civil war here. How violent it will be, I'm not sure. But it's going to be conservatives versus these ultra liberals. It's going to be the idea of the Enlightenment versus relativism. It will be, are you for God, country, and family? Or are you for killing fetuses, pushing atheism, and stepping on the American flag? Those are the division lines. Now, I'm not sure what side you're on. I know what side I'm on. It's time to get on the battlefield and start fighting for your freedoms. And so this issue here about boys not being in female sports is a canary in the coal mine of something bigger coming. Then you add in this idea of birthright citizenship and how you can change the composition of the population by just opening up the borders unfettered. And that's going to happen when we have a, quote, democratic run legislature and executive branch. When the Democrats run the two branches of government, they're going to open up the floodgates. Then they will try to stack the court. Now, pay attention to the history of Stalin, the history of Mao, especially Mao in communist China, the Cultural Revolution. We are peppering what is happening in this country with things that happened in the 1950s, late 1940s in China. There's a cultural revolution taking place here. Unfortunately, the ones that are running the cultural revolution are the DSA. The DSA is a cancer. Now, do you let cancer spread in your body, or do you get it out? That's what is at stake here. And this is why Barrett and Justice Roberts were completely wrong with the birthright citizenship, because it opens up the door to weaken the country so socialism and communism takes over. We are moving towards another civil war. Now, I'm concerned because look at what happened during the COVID years. Look at what happened in 2020, 2021, 2022. When the perfect opportunity to actually tell your government to fuck off and to stop the crazy train, the citizens didn't step forward to stop it. Didn't stop gain of function, didn't stop the tyranny of the government eroding your civil liberties during a crisis. The people that were involved in this were not held accountable, that actually made it, that actually promoted this stuff, that funded it. It's all documented. Hell, I covered it for 4 years. But the population in the United States didn't have the fortitude to tell the government to stop. Fast forward, 2026. 2027, 2028. And now you have a society that's getting cursed because there were individuals that weren't willing to do the right thing. Where are our founding fathers in this generation? Where are the Hamiltons and the Samuel Adams and the George Washingtons? Where are they? Where are the Paul Reveres? Where are the Jeffersons? They're all on TikTok, doom scrolling. Most of our founding fathers accomplished more by the time they turned 25 than you will in anything in your life, even if you live to 70. Hey guys, it's time to step up to the plate and get on the battlefield.
And man and woman, boy and girl are the terms that correspond to adults and children of each sex. To use language to obscure reality to show indifference regarding the truth is to lie to the public and cease to treat our fellow citizens as equals. Conservatives are cheering what Justice Thomas just said. And here's what they're saying online. Truth, fact, and common sense. Amen, sir. Another with a win for reality. And this one in all caps. Truth bomb, former college volleyball player Brooke Slusser was forced to play and live with a male teammate who was identifying as a woman. Her coach didn't tell her that before they moved in.
It's a great ruling to stop the males playing in female sports. I agree with the ruling. But the analyst, Faulkner, who's a conservative, who's a lawyer, she's not touching the bigger point here. It's going to cause more division. What's happening in the mosaic of the country is that there's deeper blue states and redder red states. This is the same thing that was going on in 1850s, 1840s that led to the Civil War. Now, I think we need to have a civil war because we've been living too high on the hog and don't really deserve our freedoms. You need to deserve your freedoms, all right? But that's what's happening here. It's going to take 50 years? I don't know. Is it going to take 25 years? Is it going to take 10 years? Is it going to take 100 years? I don't know. But I know that it's coming. Now, you add in the curse that I keep on talking about for the last year and a half. Rosh Hashanah and the Sabbath are coinciding. You can't blow the shofar. A curse always comes when that happens. Always. Same year that October 7th happened. The shofar wasn't blown on the Sabbath during Rosh Hashanah. And then a couple weeks later, voila, Hamas attacked Israel. That was only one day. That was only one incident, and there wasn't consecutive times. What's happening this year, in 2026 and in 2027, it's going to happen consecutively. And when you look back in time, when you do deep time, and you take a look at when Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur coincide consecutively for 2 years, there's big events that happen, like COVID, like the stock market crash in 1929, like 9/11. Pay attention to these things. There's a curse coming. It's going to start on September 11th of 2026, and it's going to last for 2 years. And a big part of this curse that's hitting us, the United States, is tied to DSA.
And had a group of women along with that teammate. Here's how she reacted to the big decision in focus yesterday.
It's amazing. It's the biggest win we've had yet, so I couldn't be happier. We couldn't ask for more right now. The fact that they allowed these student athletes that were men pretending to be women be protected under those Title IX rules that was meant for women to be protected in.
See what I mean?
It's the biggest
They're
fault.
so focused on the details that they can't see the forest through the trees. It's a division of the deeper blue and deeper red because this decision is kicked down to the state level. Same issue with abortion. Now let's think about this for a second. Part of the problem with the relativists, part of the problem with the ultra-liberal is that they want to erode God, country, and family. Now, if you mix up the idea and you change the definitions of what gender is, what the sex is of an individual, what their karyotype is, if you muddle the actual meaning of words and you keep on aborting fetuses, do you think you have a society that is family oriented? I would say no. Something bigger is coming here.
It happened.
Well, just a sample of headlines today. U.S. Supreme Court protects girls in sports, upholds biological reality. Riley Gaines op-ed. Supreme Court hands women an important win, but the fight isn't over. And we were forced to compete against a male. The Supreme Court had our backs. That last one is co-written by Madison Kenyon, a former Idaho State University track star. She signed on as a defendant in one of the big cases. Maddie joins me now, along with Kristen Wagner, President, CEO, and General Counsel for the Alliance Defending Freedom. Great to see you both. So Maddie.
Now, for the ones that have been paying attention on Rumble, because you knew that I said this early on before the market opened, I was saying I was shorting natural gas. Natural gas is trading at 3.179. Market is, the market is open and it's 10.05. I just closed my position and made a ton of money. Not even 30 minutes. All you gotta do is listen. Listen on to take the supplements, listen on my perspective of what's coming as a curse, and how to make fucking money in the market.
First of all, this is a big deal. You heard Riley Gaines say it's not over. Your take.
Yeah, it's definitely not over, but it's the first step, and I am so ecstatic. I am so grateful for ADF and for the Attorney Generals of West Virginia and Idaho and their hard work in this to know that in 27 states, women are protected and they will not have to experience what I did of losing to a male and being pushed off of, or seeing your teammates pushed off podiums and seeing roster spots being given to men and deprived of opportunity that truly paves our futures.
Yeah, you know, Kristen, I want to ask you, President Trump got this conversation started. We've been showing clips this week at our all-women's town hall here on the Faulkner Focus. He said...
And let's think about this for a second. There's going to be an awful lot of soccer moms out there, a lot of suburban families out there that are going to be all upset that their kid can't get notoriety in their sport if they have a female that's in a sport, let's say track, all right, and they're in a state that allows for this gender fluidity stuff and allows for the male to compete in the female sport. They're going to be upset because they're expecting their kid to do decently in a sport so they can get into a good school. So this is part of the reason why they're pushing back. They're pushing back for the wrong reasons. I'm glad that they're pushing back, but the thing is they're pushing back on the wrong reasons. They should be pushing back for family, for the idea of what the definition of a family is and what the definition of words are, what a male is and what a female is. And they should be supporting some level of spirituality or religion. Because this postmodernism is against religion. They're pushing back because they're afraid that Judy can't get into Harvard because she can't win a championship in track. Oh, so there's a little bit of an egoism that's tied into this. This is part of the reason why I keep on saying that there's a curse coming. Because we as mankind aren't doing the right things for the right reasons. We may be going in the right direction for certain things, but we're not really doing it for the right reasons. So you have all these soccer moms that are out there that saying, you know what, I want my daughter to be able to get into good school. And oh, by the way, the cost of education, especially Ivy League and Ivy League Plus, you have to get a scholarship to be able to even afford it. It's not gravy on the turkey. No, you have to get a scholarship or you can't, or the family can't afford it. So the stakes are even higher. But they're pushing back for the wrong reasons. They're not pushing back for the Enlightenment. They're not pushing back for what the definition of words are. They're not pushing back for the family unit. They're not pushing back for religion. They're pushing back so Judy can get a scholarship at Harvard. Now, do you see the problem here? Do you get the nuance? And mainstream media can't get their act together, even though the ruling is correct that boys should not be in female sports. Where the ruling gets it wrong is that it's going to go down to the state level and it's going to create another divide. And you add in all of the other social problems that we're having with blue states versus red states, and a civil war is coming.
He would just do it first by executive order. The court has done this, and that's what it means at, a high level. Now states can make their own minds up. What does that look like, do you think?
Well, states have already made their own minds up. As Maddie said, there are 27 states that have said sex-based categories are what we're going with because biology matters. And the court affirmed resoundingly that that is not only constitutional, but it is consistent with Title IX. Now we take this to the 23 states that aren't protecting women and girls, and we insist that they do. We have litigation at Alliance Defending Freedom that's going on in some of those states right now. And I think what's important to remember is actually the first case filed was on behalf of Connecticut high school athletes running track. That case is still going on right now, and we intend to win it on behalf of all women and girls. But it takes
what's
all
amazing,
of us to do this.
What's amazing, you had females pushing an agenda about 10 years ago saying, masculinity is bad in the workforce, males are bad, we need to hire more females and all this stuff. Then all of a sudden, because the socialists always eat their young, they grabbed onto that and then turned it on its head and then went after the females saying, well, wait a minute, you're going to have other genders, other minority groups and new defined categories that need to compete with you. And so it launches this whole LGBTQ, RS, XYZ to infinity. It's crazy. Literally, people think they're goats. They self-identify as a goat, or as a dog, or a cat, or as a giraffe. This is mental illness. But yet they want to codify it as some sort of right on the playing field. Would you want to work with someone next to you in your, in your cubicle at work and they think they're a giraffe? Do you want to work with someone that has a bone in their nose? You want to work with someone that is all tatted up and doesn't look professional? Have you looked at people that are from Gen Z and watched them eat? They don't know how to eat. They do not know how to use a fork and a knife properly. They don't even know how to set the table correctly. They sure as hell don't want to use a napkin. You have Democratic Socialists of America that use the American flag as a napkin. Now, I personally think that's disgusting. I personally think that's disrespectful, especially for all those men and women that served our country honorably and died for our country. That's disrespectful. But that's what the DSA is. That's what the Democratic Socialists of America are. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do about that? Are we just going to let it happen? Are we just going to let them take away our constitutional freedoms? Is Congress going to get their act together? Maybe the Democratic Party needs to get their act together, because there should be no reason why the DSA is getting funding from the Democratic Party. If you are a Democrat and you're donating to the Democratic Party, why the hell is DSA getting money? They're not a Democrat. They're a socialist. They want to control the means of production? That's right out of fucking Marx. Karl Marx, that is. Crazy train. Crazy train. But it's going to create, when more of the decisions are passed to the states, it's going to turn states more blue and other states more red. But the problem is, over time, and you're seeing this with Texas, over time, when they destroy a state like California, they start to migrate like pigeons. They migrate to a new area and shit all over it. All right? So you have a bunch of socialists that know that they destroyed a state of California and decide to move into Texas and shit all over that too. So now you start hearing Texas, the red state, that may be turning more pinkish or red bluish. It's changing the composition. And so what it does is that it's just like, it reverts to the mean. And reverting to the mean isn't a good thing. Reverting to the mean is to the lowest common denominator, where people don't know how to eat, where people don't know how to dress, people don't know how to set the table or have a proper conversation. That's what reverting to the mean means in society, where why try when the government's going to pay for everything? Then all of a sudden everything's expensive. And then you have to go to a state that has less taxes, that's a little bit more productive, and shit all over that too. That's what the DSA is. That is what is in America's future if conservatives do not hold the line. This midterm election is super important. And unfortunately, centrist Democrats aren't willing to go against the ultra-left. So anti-Semitism is going to increase. There's going to be a demonization of males. There's going to be a demonization of white females. Oh yeah, it wasn't, they bought into this idea that, the males, the workforce is too masculine and everything. And then all of a sudden, their own kind went against them. And they're saying, the workforce has too many white females. What are you going to do now, modern female? What are you going to do now?
It's not just the lawyers, it's the moms and dads that need to stand up to their school boards and their counties and their city governments.
We could not do this without you though, Maddie. And so many women and girls athletes like you who are brave and have big voices and are using them. I don't know if you heard an anchor on another network say this. Critics are really going after anchor Craig Melvin, effectively giving a trigger warning while he was reading some quotes from the U.S. Supreme Court's decision yesterday. First of all, let's watch.
Just a quick note here, the terms that we're using here during our reporting, biological male, biological female, the High Court put those terms in quotations in their decision, in their dissent. But just so you know, we're using those terms from the decision itself: biological male, biological female.
See, so you have a liberal media having to give a trigger warning, so all of those libs that are sitting at home eating their bonbons don't get upset. You know, all those crazy liberals with their blue hair and the bone in the nose and tatted up and watching MS Now, and they don't want to be triggered. They think that if the SCOTUS says biological male, that they get triggered. See what I mean? In schools today, even professional schools, they're training students to be a little bit more kinder and gentler and understanding of people that have these gender fluidity issues and issues with microaggression and all this. We're creating a society of weaklings. And we're going to be able to fight a war with China over Taiwan. Guess what? Gen Z is going to lose. We're going to lose our hegemonic power in the Pacific. Thank you, Gen Z. Thank you so much for, the hegemonic power that we gained from the greatest generation, which my grandfather was a part of, and oh, by the way, was a CB in the Navy during World War II. And we had this hegemonic power in the Pacific. We're going to lose all that because Gen Z can't fight. Because Gen Z is worried about microaggressions, like words like biological male. People need to wake up, man. Push back on these liberals. Just get in their face and push back.
So some legal reaction first. Constitutional law attorney and Fox News contributor Jonathan Turley said, "This is how the press becomes a parody of itself." House Republicans called it crazy, and a conservative journalist said leftists find the words biological male triggering. Look, let's set the legal aside for Kristen. I'll get right to you, but I want to get your take on what you see playing out here, Maddie.
I think it's important to identify that there are two different sexes, and it's so important in sports, and that's what we've been fighting for. I personally got a scholarship to Idaho State in order to run, and that got me my degree. And
see what I mean? See what I mean? It's not about God in family. It's about their scholarship. The reason to fight this, the reason to fight against liberalism, the reason to fight against this whole male playing in female sports is to support the idea of religion and to support the idea of family and the family unit and some normalcy of the idea of the nuclear family, instead of this postmodern, anything can go gender fluidity stuff. But they're fighting it because they want the scholarship to Harvard or to some other school. Now, I understand they need it to be able to afford the very expensive tuition. Even at a state school, it's expensive. I mean, Harvard just raised their tuition to I think it was $95,000 or $97,000 a year. So $400,000 now to get an undergrad degree at the Ivy League. This is the reason why it's so important to get into sports. And then you add in, if you're really good, maybe you get some ad deals and you can make some money that way. So we're turning into Rome. This is like gladiators. The idea of bread and circus, and everyone's so focused on the sports, but not really focusing on what's really more important here. The pillars of society, God, country, and family on the foundation of the Enlightenment. That's the reason why I have a problem with this. They're fighting the right fight, but for the wrong reasons.
to be a nurse. I met my husband in that town. And when men compete against women, we are sidelined in our own sports and we have nowhere else to go. So I'm just really grateful that the Supreme Court was able to recognize differences of the sexes, because it is so important in sports in order to maintain the integrity of women's sports specifically.
Well, you have so many.
But I thought that women can do everything that a guy can do. Obviously they can't. You know, I put another position shorting natural gas, by the way. So biologically, there are differences, not just with genitalia, with testosterone levels, with musculature, with bone density, just the size of the individual, but also the brain. The wiring of the brain for many females is different than males. Males are more wired from front to back and back to front because of hunting and gathering and targeting with ocular targeting, while females are more left to right neural network connections. And that's for child rearing and organization of family unit. So the brain's wired differently between males and females. But we were told 10 years ago that the female can do everything that the male can do, that there's no difference. Well, really, there is a difference. Now we get back to some of the main points that I'm trying to make here. For thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, there was this concept of the family unit. And because of modern man, Homo economicus, they thought they could just throw that all away and they can just align themselves with some sort of postmodernism. Wrong, wrong, wrong. And now we have a society where it's heavily indebted. Women were convinced to go work, don't child rear, populations start to decline, and all of a sudden you start to have problems in society. So maybe some of the ultra-liberal crap that was happening in the 1960s we're actually starting to see affect negatively the society that we have today. And oh, by the way, all that started with the boomers. The baby boom generation. Now, not all baby boomers are bad, but in the aggregate, they were the ones that sowed the seeds with the problems that we have today, because they aligned with postmodernism. Their generation is postmodern.
Things going on, and I heard you mention the word husband. God bless you, and in your journey as it continues, all that success. Kristen, give me the legal side of what we just watched from, an anchor having to sort of, I don't know what he was doing. He wasn't telling the truth in it. He was couching it for some reason.
Well, so many of these progressively left media outlets want to focus on the dissent, and that's not actually the court's ruling. And as you pointed out in Justice Thomas's concurrence, when we use language,
so as I was talking, in between these talks, I put a trade in natural gas, shorted it, and closed the position. And we're talking less than 5 minutes. And made more money. See the point that I'm making here? Don't be a fucking slave to the system. Because if you become a slave to the system, you don't have any recourse. If you have to be dependent on your boss, are you a slave? The answer is yes. If you have to be dependent on pharmacopoeia to live, are you a slave? Yes. So maybe it behooves you to actually pay attention on how to get wealthy and also how to get healthy.
It is lying to the public, and it is a disservice to our nation. the court's decision, Justice Kavanaugh, he wrote like a father who has daughters. He wrote like a coach who's coached girls. And finally, our girls have a decision from the Supreme Court that says you matter, that you matter just as much as the boys, and your opportunities are just as important. Not just for future opportunities and scholarships, but for your own character and for the virtues that you need to develop and can develop in sports. This is a big victory, and we're taking it to every single state.
Kristen, thank you. And with all of your goals and things that you outlined for us, Maddie,
that's from a Republican point of view. And I agree. Males should not be in female sports, nor should females be in male sports. But the thing is that here, this is from a Republican perspective. And hopefully they win at the state level. But you also have the other side of the coin. And Republicans have a tendency not to be organized compared to Democrats. Republicans have better ideas, but are disorganized. Democrats have really bad ideas, but are very organized. So the chances are there are going to be more blue states allowing for this crap to happen and have biological males in women's sports versus Republican states, especially when you add in that other function of the pigeons flying from California and shitting all over Texas. These socialists will move out of their state and move into a Republican state and destroy it. They're like a cancer. So don't be so sure that you'll win at the state level. Because just pay attention to what's happening with the DSA. They're organized. And they're gaining momentum. And it doesn't seem that there's enough pushback from the actual Democratic Party. Because they think they'll win more seats and then somehow they'll be able to control them. But you know what? I think this is a wild animal. The DSA is a wild animal. The intelligentsia of the Democratic Party, they're not going to be able to control it.
That fight inside of you and being an athlete just makes you even more successful. God bless you both. Thank you. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
I needed 10 sequin cowboy hats for a bachelorette party. But what did I get? What the? But then everything was just resolved. Return label in my email. Order tracked. Thanks to nice AI agents.
All right.
Welcome to Intersolar 2026. Here we have the world's leading exhibition when it comes to the solar industry. We have developers, suppliers, manufacturers.
But ultimately, the USMCA, it was going to expire in 2036, and that's the course it's on, unless they can get it into a shape where everybody thinks it's worth renewing for another 16 years.
Okay, so this creates uncertainty for automakers. I heard you mention them, certainly farmers as well as energy companies. What are the specific sticking points? What is something that the U.S., the Trump administration wants that Canada and Mexico are not willing to give, for instance?
Well, one of the issues with Mexico is are what they call rules of origin. It's basically sort of the nationality of a product. Is it made in Mexico? Is it made in the U.S.? And the Trump administration wants to sort of tighten up these rules of origin so that products have more American content in them than they would another country like Mexico. And so there are already these rules that exist, but the Trump administration wants to tighten those up, to have more things made in the United States. This long-running issue that the U.S. has with the Canadian dairy industry, and then the protections that the Canadian government has for its dairy producers. That's been a long-running sticking point, and the U.S. trade officials that we've spoken to have said that's another issue they want to deal with it. And also with Canada, Canada produces vehicles. American automakers have plants in Canada, and President Trump wants those cars and trucks to be made in the U.S.
Brendan, is the expectation that if President Trump doesn't like a particular economic action from either Canada or Mexico, that the response would simply be tariffs?
Yeah, so that's the other unknown that we're going to get here in the short term, in the next few weeks, is the 10% tariff that the president put on most major U.S. trading partners after he lost the Supreme Court case. That 10% tariff expires on July 24th, and so we're going to see the administration come out with a sort of a rolling group of different kinds of tariffs using different authorities to put on instead of the 10% tariffs that are applying now. USMCA goods that move across the U.S., Canadian, Mexican borders, USMCA compliant goods are not going to be subject to that. But these other tariffs that are going to replace it, there are concerns. These sort of sectoral tariffs are going to that there are concerns that if USMCA kind of fades away or starts to be eroded in the rules that are currently in place, that some more merchandise that moves across North America will face some of those tariffs. That's the fear from Mexico and Canada anyway.
Very quickly, Brendan, I know you mentioned the automakers' stocks, for instance, didn't move a whole lot on this announcement, but I wonder what the industry is saying right now in terms of urging governments to move forward, or how they move forward.
Yeah, I think generally, the automakers don't really want to, stick their necks out and say much and complain about things. There are tariffs on imports of steel and aluminum that are hitting the U.S. automakers and making U.S. cars more expensive. But generally, businesses say, look, we need clarity, we need some stability, we need to know what our costs are going to be over the next couple decades if we're gonna have supply chains that benefit from what Canada and Mexico and the U.S. has to offer.
All right, Brendan, thanks so much.
I want to go to CNN. Russia unleashes 11-hour barrage of strikes in Kiev. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the probiotics. This is going to help your gut biome. Super important. I have VeggieCap version or the powder version. I prefer taking the powder version because I take all these different powders, like the collagen, lignans, the Boomer Boost, the Gladiator Barley. So it's just easier for me. But take either one, but take it every day. And what this will do is improve your gut biome, allow you to absorb your nutrients, improve your immune system at the gut level, reduce allergies, reduce leaky gut syndrome, help you to sleep better. A lot of people don't realize this. A good gut biome will actually help your brain function. You're going to get into better sleep cycles. You'll be able to concentrate better, get rid of that brain fog, detoxify your central nervous system. Yes, all this because you have a better gut biome. Your metabolism will improve. You're going to be able to absorb your nutrients better. So please go to my store, get the probiotics. VeggieCap version or powdered version. Very important as the foundation for my anti-aging protocol. Super important to take. Resveratrol helps with youthful gene expression, helps to soak up free radicals, helps to boost up the mitochondria so you have more energy, helps to get rid of cells that are in senescence. If you have cells just sitting there not dividing, they collect lipofuscin, collect garbage, and your tissues don't perform as well. You need to get rid of those. Resveratrol does that. Resveratrol will also help with the basal layer of your skin so you look younger. Stack it with C60. So resveratrol with C60 is a great combo to help the basal layer of your skin. So please go to my store, get the resveratrol, and again, stacking it with C60 is synergistic. Omega-3 helps with the cardiovascular health, brings down systemic inflammation, helps you to control your lipid profile, reduce plaque formation. That's really important. And omega-3 reduces the over-stickiness of your red blood cells. And vitamin D3, super important to take. There are a lot of people out there that only take vitamin D3. If you only take vitamin D3, guess what? You're doing it wrong. Vitamin D3 is super important. Why? Because it's a gene expression cofactor. It's going to help your cells express the genes it needs for that tissue. Vitamin D3 also helps to build denser bone. You do resistance training, taking calcium. Some people take calcium supplements. I prefer to drink milk. And vitamin D3 will help with cardiovascular health and help with the immune system because it helps to get rid of cells that need to go into apoptosis if they're infected. This is the reason why you take vitamin D3 during the cold season. But you should be taking it every day. And vitamin D3 with higher doses can actually, with proper protocol, reduce osteoporosis and osteopenia and osteoarthritis. But you need to know what you're doing. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the vitamin D3. Digestive enzyme complex. Reduce the load on your pancreas. Don't be a Steve Jobs. I don't care how healthy you are. Your pancreas doesn't function as well as when it was younger, assuming that your pancreas was healthy when you were younger. Now, digestive enzyme complex will help to break up the carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids, reduce the load on your pancreas, and it'll allow you to absorb your nutrients. It also has bromelain as an enzyme to help break up clots. And it has the proteolytic enzymes to break up glycoproteins, which is super important during cold season. So please go to my store and get the digestive enzyme complex. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. All right. Let's listen into what's going on with Russia and Ukraine.
Pretty amazing, right? The Sony True RGB TV, more colors than you've ever seen before. Serious upgrade.
A grim task for emergency crews in Kyiv just hours after news salvo of Russian strikes hit the city. Officials are saying that at least 13 people were killed and that more than 85 others were injured. And the damage, it has been reported at more than 30 locations across Ukraine's capital city. Right now it's mid-morning there and rescue crews are out in full force. Officials say that a number of residential buildings took direct hits. Right now, emergency crews there, they're going through the rubble, trying to recover the remains of the victims. President Volodymyr Zelensky, he had warned that there were indications that Russia was preparing for a massive strike. And it comes after a series of Ukrainian drone attacks deep inside Russia in recent weeks. Ivan Watson is following developments from Hong Kong and joins me live. Ivan, so what do we know about what led up to this? Our understanding was that Ukraine's president had intelligence that this was likely coming?
That's right. And Volodymyr Zelensky had, in fact, warned residents of Kyiv to heed the air raid sirens and to treat this seriously. So you actually had large numbers of residents who had taken to the subway stations that have served as air raid shelters for much of the last more than 4 years since Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, that they had taken those precautions. And yet, despite that, the ferocity of this bombardment has claimed lives. The emergency workers, as we speak, are still digging through the rubble of buildings, trying to search for victims. According to the mayor of Kyiv, that's Vitaly Klitschko, he says at least 13 people have been killed, more than 80 people wounded. Among those missing is a 15-year-old girl and her family. The Russian Defense Ministry has claimed responsibility for this attack. They say that this was a, quote, massive strike using high-precision, long-range weapons, including drones that not only targeted Kyiv, but also other regions of Ukraine, including Dnipropetrovsk, Poltava.
I just want to interrupt here. For the ones that were paying attention early on in the session of this broadcast, I said I'm staying away from the S&P 500 because I was concerned about the long holiday that's coming up in the United States. Right now, the S&P 500 is at 7,493. VIX is ticking up a little bit. It's still at the 16 mark. It's at 1643. Dollar is starting to gain a little bit, but it's Euro still at 114, Japanese yen still at 161. There's a little bit of a just slight retrace towards the dollar. There's a little bit of a retrace up for the 10-year bond price. And the S&P 500 is starting to lose momentum. That's exactly what I thought was going to happen. That was the reason why I was not long S&P 500. It's just the liquidity is not there for the holiday. Right now, the natural gas is trading at 3.165. It dropped as low as 3.151. I'm waiting for it to maybe pop back up. Oil is trading at 67.67 right now. I'm not in any large oil positions. I have a very small short oil position at the moment. And I'm waiting to see if natural gas will cycle back up to about 3.19, maybe even 3.18, and then I'll probably short it. But if it keeps on falling, I'll just stay away and just wait for it to retrace.
In Chernihiv, and that in Kiev, that they were targeting things like factories that they claim were manufacturing parts for things like the Ukrainian Flamingo missiles, or storage facilities for drones, or industrial areas that were used to create parts for things like drones and missiles. The Ukrainian government is saying there were residential buildings that suffered direct impacts and have contributed to the growing loss of life as a result of this deadly night. At least 11 hours the bombardment continued. That's according to eyewitnesses. So a deadly night in what has been an escalating long-range aerial war between Ukraine and Russia that has escalated in just recent weeks, really, Polo.
So what's happening on the ground right now? Let's go live to Kyiv. We're joined by Peter Zalmayev. He's the director of Eurasia Democracy Initiative. Just bring us up to speed on the situation on the ground, which you perhaps remember hearing it, and if any people are still sheltering in place after those overnight strikes.
Well, the number of the fatalities is, of course, growing. Now we're talking about 13 people, and I think what's very, once again, I think needs to be pointed out is that most of the, if not all of the targets are civilian. Over 30 buildings targeted, some of them partly, some of them fully destroyed, and that is the main difference. When we're talking about Ukrainian strikes deep into Russian territory, Ukraine is targeting fuel supply, roads and fuel supply, logistics, etc. That directly feeds the Putin's fighting machine in Ukraine, whereas Putin is simply indiscriminately, once again, bombing the capital of Ukraine. He finds himself actually in a hard place. As the Russians are grumbling, the fuel crisis has gripped all of Russia. People are unhappy, and Putin needs to show them something. He has ruled out ending this war anytime soon. So, gesture of vengeance to try to placate his base.
So, based on what you say there, Peter, do you suspect clearly that this is likely some sort of revenge after he has been under some tremendous pressure to do something after experiencing that what has really been this escalated campaign against targets in Moscow from Ukraine?
Indeed, and many have taken to comparing what's happening between Russia and Ukraine now to the so-called war of cities between Iran and Iraq back in the 1980s. It is a retaliatory spiral, and once again, Vladimir Putin has made a calculation that ending this war now, especially that Vladimir Zelensky of Ukraine is essentially giving him ultimatums, a 40-day ultimatum to finish this war, or else Vladimir Putin is not going to negotiate under these conditions. Of course, he needs to continue projecting strength. And if the Crimean Peninsula becomes an island completely cut off from motherland Russia, from the rest of Russia, so be it. I think Vladimir Putin is willing to stomach all sorts of destruction and misery in Russia as long as he continues to be seen as pursuing his goal of essentially bringing Ukraine to its knees.
And as you were speaking, we were seeing some of those images from Ukraine's state emergency service where they're pulling out people from the rubble as you mentioned at the top, that a death toll does continue to rise. So what do you think comes next when it comes to President Zelensky? How does he in turn respond to what is widely believed to be the targeting of these residential areas?
Well, I think Ukraine's paramount task is to make Ukrainian cities livable. And of course, it's a new normal for Ukrainians. They're hardened after 4.5 years of this madness. But still, Vladimir Putin, I think, is really banking on thousands and hundreds of thousands of Kievans and residents of other cities leaving, making them economically unviable, and in fact increasing the refugee crisis in Europe, inundating Europe with more of its refugees, straining their welfare systems. So it's like a multi-pronged strategy for Vladimir Putin. Ukraine is to defend its cities from the air, and that explains Sibiga, our foreign minister's appeal to the Europeans, to the Americans: help us with Patriot missiles, help us with air defenses. We need to defend the cities, otherwise this is going to be very hard. And Putin once again is hoping to try again this coming winter to completely cast Kiev into cold and darkness.
I'm joined now by Orysia Lutsevich. She is the head of the Ukraine Forum at Chatham House and joins us now live. Thank you very much for joining.
Chatham House is a think tank, kind of almost a secret society, but not quite, more like Davos. You get special information and know where to put your money before the action happens. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the heirloom barley. Heirloom barley will help to soak up free radicals, bring down inflammation, and detoxify your body. Super important. And by doing that, your endocrine system and your immune system, your cardiovascular system, and brain function will improve. I also have Gladiator barley. Gladiator barley does everything that the heirloom barley does, but one added benefit: it will help to build muscle. So do some resistance training. This stacks really well with the Myotrol. Either one stacks really well with the Boomer Boost. It's a great way to get healthy, and detoxifying your body regularly is super important. And another very important anti-aging method is to have good sleep. Get the Goodnight formula. It has tryptophan, melatonin, GABA, and passion flower. You'll get into 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep. And when you do that, you're consolidating memory. You're improving the positive neuroplasticity. Your neural networks will improve. And when you're doing that, your memory and your cognition will be faster and more robust. And you'll be well rested. And you do that regularly, you're slowing down the aging process. Now you can stack. You take this at night and you can stack it with either the Gladiator barley or the heirloom barley. Take the Gladiator barley or heirloom barley in the morning. You can mix it with soft foods, filtered water, a smoothie. I put it in hummus. Lately, I've been making iced coffee and just mixing it in the iced coffee. So it's many ways to take the heirloom or the Gladiator barley. But please do it every day. And by doing this, you're improving your health. You're getting healthy. It's very powerful stuff. It works. It also helps with joints. If you have arthritis, it's going to reduce that inflammation. And by reducing inflammation, you're reducing joint erosion. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Here in the program, as reported, Russia has attacked Ukraine's capital. Tell us, what is the strategic logic of these strikes, especially in light of Ukraine's long-range drone attacks on Moscow?
So you're seeing basically the fact that Putin is failing to achieve any of his objectives in territorial terms, to retake all of these lands that he claims in the Russian constitution belong, even less the leftovers of Donbass region. And he is basically on the revenge mission against Ukrainian civilians to break the will to resist, to make life hell in Ukrainian cities. And we're seeing these attacks, continuous attacks, with more than 500 drones overnight to basically bombard cities. On the other hand, Ukraine is practicing quite a sophisticated mid and long-range precision strikes to take out the blood of Russian war economy, which is, of course, energy and fuel and it has attacked 8 out of 10 largest refineries to incapacitate, damage them consistently. It's from actually October of 2025. Now it is intensified.
And Arisa, let's just.
What if you could print every idea to life?
And Arisa, let's discuss what triggered what you call Putin's revenge mission. Let's focus in on Ukraine's mission, Ukraine's refinery-focused drone campaign. What does Ukraine achieve with this battlefield strategy?
Ukraine has surprisingly achieved quite a lot if we consider that Russia is the largest producer and exporter of oil. It has an enormous system of refining and transit from land and sea routes. So as a result of these sophisticated drone attacks, Ukraine has taken about 20% of oil refining capacity of Russia. And it's because the equipment to run these stations is expensive, it's not easy to repair, but also it comes from the West, where there are sanctions imposed to limit Russia's access to any equipment related to energy sector. So this consistent attack led to shortages in many Russian regions of fuel. We already see rationing of how much civilians can purchase. They can't have canisters to fill in to store home, but also this will impact the army first of all, and this is the goal. The gasoline that is used for armored vehicles and all kinds of vehicles, the production of it dropped 25%. So much this is the problem that for the first time Russia will have to import some of it from sea. So it's in talk with Kazakhstan and India to actually repurchase India's processed Russian oil that it's refining back into Russia.
And we've seen such, vivid depictions of this rationing. We've seen lines and lines of Russian drivers waiting for petrol in Russian cities, along with the images of blown up Russian refineries. What has all this done to Russia's so-called energy superpower status?
Why? Clearly, it has damaged it to a large degree, and also something that Russian population could probably have not imagined. They have flashbacks to the 90s when Soviet Union was collapsing and there was deficit of everything. So it's a strange, harbinger possibly of what awaits Russia, and people perfectly understand it. Putin will try to put up a brave show and will try to find alternative sources for this energy. But the question is whether he will have to pay hard currency for this, which he's also running out because his war chest is drying up. We see Russia runs a huge...
You can see we're in July, beginning of July. The curse starts September 11th of this year, lasts for 2 years. You can see the emergence of some issues around the world. Does Putin capitulate or does Putin ramp up? We're already in World War III. It's a different kind of World War. But we're already in a hot war. World War. It's beyond a proxy type Cold War epoch. We're in a hot war here. Now, some people say, oh, it's Cold War 2.0. No, I don't think so. I think it's hot war, World War III.
Budget deficit more than it has expected. So all of this creates really a crunch time for Russia. And especially, let's recall that there will be so-called sham Duma elections, where one way or the other, Putin will have to show up the brave face, telling how this war is going in his favor, which obviously the Russian citizens perfectly understand it is not.
This is, as you put it, crunch time for Russia and for Putin, but is there a danger that Russia's fuel prices actually could rally the public around the Kremlin instead of turning them against it?
There's always a risk of that, and a nation under any attack is rallying around the flag. There are two questions. One, how long they can sustain this rally, and let's, as I've said, the Ukrainian strikes on Russia when Russian population stopped feeling it is now lasting more than a year and a half. And furthermore, it's attacking Moscow, the heartland of Russia. And also, let's remember, in Russia, it's the economic elite, it's a security elite that also has a huge influence. And if they see things happening, especially in Crimea, somewhere where the fuel shortages are the worst, because it's a peninsula, it relies heavily on everything provided from mainland. The fear is that if Ukraine manages to choke off Crimea, there may be a real panic in the elites whether Russia will be able to sustain this, war treasure as where it's started the war against Ukraine back in 2014 for the annexation of Crimea. And if there is a risk of losing this prize, there will be more pressure either to consider, a certain removal of Putin or a serious negotiation with Ukraine to avoid a humiliating defeat.
Right now, natural gas is trading at 3.172. S&P 500 is trading at 7,501. And oil is trading at 67.72 at the moment. Please go to my store and get the Boomer Boost. Boomer Boost has 68 nutrients. This has the multivitamins and the minerals and the other supplements that you need to slow down the aging process. It's dual purpose. It's going to help with your cardiovascular system, help with your brain function, help with musculature, help with the immune system and the endocrine system. Boost up those energy levels, soak up free radicals, bring down inflammation. It is a perfect multivitamin supplement, but you get way more than just a regular multivitamin. So take this every day. This is a powder. And if you suffer from migraine headaches, most likely the severity and the frequency of the headaches will diminish radically. All right, so please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. Take it every day. It's a month's supply. Clarity factor. Gets rid of that brain fog, allows you to concentrate, and over time, you're going to improve the dendritic connections between your neurons. So you're going to be thinking faster and have better memory. Take it every day. Drink it with filtered water. And C60. C60 is a very potent antioxidant. It's about 1,000 times stronger than vitamin C. Take a teaspoon a day every day, preferably on an empty stomach in the morning. You'll also notice that you recover quicker after a workout. This will soak up free radicals, bring down inflammation at the cellular level and the tissue level, so your organ systems will perform better. Your endocrine system will improve, your glands will improve, your brain function, your immune system will improve. Your cardiovascular system will improve because it's going to soak up the free radicals, and you will be reducing the concentrations of oxidized LDL. When you do that, you are reducing plaque formation. That's really important. And getting better blood flow to your organs, those organs will perform better, including your brain, especially the hippocampus. You can get it in avocado oil and extra virgin olive oil and MCT coconut oil. Take a teaspoon a day every day. C60 will also help the basal layer. If you stack it with the resveratrol, it's synergistic to help the basal layer for your skin so you look younger. So you're going to have more energy and you're going to look younger. I've been taking this for more than 10 years every day. And you stack it, a powerful stack. Boomer Boost. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. You can use it as many times as you want. Let's listen into Bloomberg.
Off by 0.2%, and we're going to get a check-in on geopolitics with Edward Price, the non-resident senior fellow at NYU. But first, let's head over down to Charlie Pellet for our Bloomberg Business Flash.
Thank you very much. Great hour ahead, and we are well off session highs. You alluded to NASDAQ. Let's begin right now because NASDAQ is in the red, down 41 points to 25,955 right now on the NASDAQ Composite Index, down 0.1%, giving up earlier gains. The NASDAQ 100 Index now sinking by 0.7%. Both the the S&P and the Dow are pushing higher. Dow, in fact, had a record on this jobs Thursday. We did see a slower than anticipated increase in jobs, driving most stocks higher. S&P up 19. That is a gain of 0.3%. So to be sure, most stocks higher. Dow at a record. We do have the Bloomberg Mag 7 index falling by 0.6%. The SOX, the Philadelphia Stock Exchange's semiconductor index, down by 3.2%. And the VIX was below 16, now just above 16. The 10-year, 4.46%, of the 2-year, 4.12%, and the 30-year, 4.96%. Gold is surging 2.5%, 41.29 right now for an ounce of the precious metal. A further retreat for West Texas Intermediate crude, 67.74 a barrel, down 1.2%. Barrel of Brent below 71 now. Brent crude down by 1%. Jobs Thursday, as we mentioned, hiring slowed sharply in June, even as the unemployment rate fell to 4.2%. Elena Chulyakova is senior U.S. economist at the Conference Board, and she was a guest right here last hour on Bloomberg Intelligence.
The swing in the headline was largely driven by leisure and hospitality, first rising in May and falling in June, as basically I think World Cup kind of like muddied the numbers there, some seasonality over there.
Elena Chulyakova, senior U.S. economist at the Conference Board, a guest right here on Bloomberg Intelligence. So recapping now. Earlier, gains fading for NASDAQ, down 0.3%, S&P up 0.2, Dow Industrials.
See what I mean? What I was saying?
0.9%. I'm Charlie Pellet.
I said that the liquidity wasn't going to be there. Things are going to start dropping off, especially at 12 o'clock. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the structural nanosilver toothpaste. This has no fluoride. It has the structural nanosilver, so it's neutralizing. It's perfect for the cold season, but you should be using this every day. It whitens your teeth, freshens your breath, reduces inflammation at the gum line, improves your gum line, and with good oral hygiene, you're improving your cardiovascular system and your valvular system. A lot of people don't know this. Poor oral hygiene can cause problems with your cardiovascular system and the valves of your heart. You need good oral hygiene. This is the reason why many people that are in geriatric care, they start having poor oral hygiene and they have cardiovascular problems. So it's really important to take the structural nanosilver toothpaste, get a few tubes of this for your household. It's very high quality and it neutralizes because it has the structural nanosilver. And again, make sure that you use discount 5. I want you to save some money. You know, things are too expensive out there. You're bombarded by stress and toxins, and you know your body is degrading, right? But you can fight it. You can get healthier. I'm telling you how to do it. But you're also getting bombarded by people taking advantage of you in terms of what's going on in economics. You have our representatives in government making policies that make things worse for you. Put more regulation on the companies you work for, increasing the inflation. So I'm trying to teach you on how to be your own boss, how to take care of your own family, how to get healthy. And when you do that, when you are a master of your own domain, you are no longer a slave to the system. Right, this is about
if you are using plastic phone mounts, you are damaging your car every day. Premium car owners refuse to use regular phone mounts. Here is why.
Oh, welcome back. Good Thursday morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. I'm Maria Bartiromo, and it is Thursday, July 2nd. It is 8:02 on the East Coast. The kickoff to the long holiday July 4th weekend and America's celebrations. Oil prices this morning are lower going into the long weekend. The price of crude right now at $67.27, down almost 2%. National average for gasoline prices also down to $3.83 a gallon. That is down from $4.29 just 1 month ago. as Americans get on the road to celebrate America's 250th anniversary. The U.S. and Iran concluding a round of productive peace talks in Doha yesterday, but no clear deal was made. Joining me right now is the nation's U.S. Energy Secretary, Christopher Wright. Secretary, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thanks for having me, Maria. Glad to be here.
Well, we're all gearing up for a long weekend to celebrate this great nation. What should we expect in terms of gasoline and electricity prices? Your colleague, Secretary Scott Bessent, has been backing the president's call to gas retailers to lower prices at the pump right now. What's your expectation?
Oh, they'll keep falling, Maria. You know, look, the American military, not any benign actions from Iran, but the American military has oil flowing back through the Strait of Hormuz. American production's at record levels. Venezuelan production is rising rapidly. So supply is growing, and that's driving prices down. First in oil and then gasoline. But gasoline prices are on their way down. I was in my home of Denver last weekend, and there were $2.99 gas stations around town. So we're headed the right direction. Very excited to see it, and just in time for the peak travel season.
It's absolutely terrific. You know, 250 years after the founding of this great nation, you and your colleagues, President Trump, have been doing energy breakthroughs, really, with regard to the amount of energy that we could actually use and touch into, whether it's the nuclear, LNG exports, something else. How would you assess the capacity of America today?
Oh, it's on the rise. American optimism, American ingenuity, and a belief in a positive future is thriving again. You know, after 4 years of preaching the world was about to end, making kids pessimistic, celebrating the closure of coal or natural gas power plants. We preached an age of doom and gloom. Of course, Americans didn't buy that, but it got weighed on top of them. Now Americans are free, and they're innovating, and they're driving forward. Maria, I'm sure you saw the press release yesterday. We had our third small modular reactor go critical yesterday. And we have a fourth one that may come before the 4th of July. Incredibly exciting times for American innovation, from, as I said, from record oil production, natural gas production, nuclear launching. Seriously, we're going to see incredible activity in the nuclear space over the coming years and coming decades. And next generation geothermal is on the march as well. America's going to be a land of opportunity again.
I love that. And Secretary, tell me about the nuclear build-out. What are the biggest obstacles in terms of building dozens of more nuclear reactors? Because I know that that's part of the story. And also, how much do you believe with this AI revolution, how much will be used in terms of powering it, nuclear versus oil and gas versus electricity? Can you break that down for us?
Well, look, our biggest source of electricity today, by a large margin, is natural gas. We just have an amazing abundance of natural gas in the United States, and it's extremely cheap. I call it America's energy superpower, is natural gas and pipelines. So most of the expansion that's going to happen in the next few years for the data centers being built now will be from natural gas. But nuclear is going to be close behind. Both large reactors, we had an announcement last week of a $17.5 billion loan program to get 10 large-scale reactors built. They're each 1.1 gigawatts. So think of that, 11 gigawatts, that's 10 million homes of electricity. But a lot of it will be used to power new data centers and new manufacturing in the United States. So just progress across the board. We stopped closing coal plants, just a little bit of a return of common sense. Very cold, very hot in the East Coast right now. If we had President Harris right now, we'd be dealing with blackouts and massive economic disruption because they would have continued to close all the coal plants, and they wouldn't have encouraged building anything new unless it was carefully blessed by the climate cold gods from above, which means nothing meaningful would be built and expanded. But fortunately, we're not in those ages. We're celebrating 250 years of the greatest nation on earth. America became a great nation by bold people taking chances and building big things. We're going back to that.
I love that, Secretary. I love it so much. And your portfolio has expanded in the middle of all of this. Let me get your take on some of those bad policies that you are overturning. The Department of Energy issued a notice this morning to permanently end Green New Deal era appliance mandates. Those mandates really were incredible. The new proposal is updating the current process rule used for energy conservation standards to preserve consumer choices and lower costs. Secretary, tell us about the announcement that you're leading and what people should expect now, because when Joe Biden came out with all these, restrictions on our own appliances like stoves and refrigerators, people were really unnerved.
Yes, and this is President Trump just
2 p.m. still works great. We'll put our best guy in the job.
You said you were the best guy.
Boss, the sales guy.
You should check out Capitus and get a fast business loan and hire some help.
Yes, and this is President Trump just leaning in on common sense and trust in the American people. Look, if you want to buy a clothes dryer that costs far more and doesn't dry your clothes, you got to run it twice, you're free to do that. But to impose that choice on all Americans, that is absolutely un-American. You see the Europeans coming over here celebrating the World Cup, and they're thrilled. Oh my God, there's air conditioning here in the summer. Maybe we should have that in Europe. But President Biden, his goal for the United States was to be France, but tear everyone's air conditioners out. I think you covered a story a year ago when I was down at a hot water heater factory in Georgia that was going to close because the new Biden administration policies decided this low-cost, efficient hot water heater was somehow unvirtuous and was about to become illegal. People think I'm making that up. That's actually the truth. So instead of gradually rolling back these regulations, we just found the legal way to let Americans be treated as adults. Buy the appliances you want. Make the different trade-offs you like that fit for you and your age. That's America. That's common sense. That's President Trump.
That's true.
But the Democrats want to tell you what you can buy for your home. The Democrats are trying to tell landlords that you no longer can have natural gas in your home or in your apartment, and that you have to convert it to electric. What if it's already built? No, you got to change it. Why? Oh, we want everyone to be on electric because natural gas is bad. There's a climate change. Having a diversified portfolio of energy in your country is the prudent thing to do. Look at what's happening in Europe, with Germany, with France, with even England. They bought into this whole idea of renewable energy. And they have a heat wave from El Nino, and they don't have enough energy to run the air conditioners. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nanosilver gel. You can get it in the tube form or in the quick dispenser called Renew. It's dual purpose. It will help to heal an abrasion, a minor burn, or a cut much quicker, about a third of the time quicker. You can use it as a daily skin care. You can also use it to reduce allergies. Lightly coat your nostrils during the allergy season, and it will neutralize the allergen. Or if you're cleaning around the house, make sure you put it on your hands and lightly coat your nostrils. That way, if you're breathing in anything in the basement or in the garage or even outside in the yard, you're mitigating the exposure. During the cold season, put it on your hands, around your eyes, around your ears, lightly coat your nostrils. Stays active for 5.5 hours. It's dual purpose. Make sure you have some at home and some at work. Cleanse is 30 parts per million. Max 35 is 35 parts per million, and max 14 is 14 parts per million. They're at different price points, but whichever one you choose to use, take a teaspoon a day, swish it in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds, and then swallow it. What this will do is boost up your innate immune system and neutralize. It'll help the health of your oral cavity, your oral pharynx, maintain a mucosal barrier, and help the health of your epithelial cells in your oral pharynx. That's super important to boost boost up that innate immune system. And it's neutralizing, so it's going to help to neutralize allergens. If you've been exposed to dust while cleaning, make sure you use this, and during the cold season. It's really important. It helps to neutralize because it has the structural nanosalt. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. I take a teaspoon a day every day. I've been doing this for over 6 years. And I stack this protocol with C60, Boomer Boost, ashwagandha root, lignans, and the turmeric, the probiotics. And that's a very powerful protocol to slow down the aging process. Now, I add a bunch of other stuff too, and you can customize this any way you want. But I'm telling you the key core protocol to slow down the aging process, because you're targeting everything that is related to aging: energy levels, inflammation, free radicals, metabolism, cardiovascular health, brain function. It's very comprehensive, and it's affordable, and it works. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great supplements that I offer.
The 250 celebrations, meanwhile, in full swing ahead of the July 4th holiday on Saturday. The Great American State Fair taking over Washington's National Mall. Secretary, I know you were at the Freedom 250 Fair yesterday. Tell us about it.
There's a growing interest in socialism among young people in America, but do they know about its dismal past and history of failure? In the ebook, The History of Socialism and Capitalism, you can join Mr.
Oh, it is exciting. You know, at the Department of Energy booth, we have all sorts of awesome things from our national labs, scientific innovations that change the world that we're in today, and maybe more importantly, that'll change the world we're in the future. What we can do with artificial intelligence and additive manufacturing, basically 3D printers with metal and materials, we can just build more complex things more quickly, more cheaply, and therefore it's just going to continue to make people's lives better. So it's about optimism. It's about leaning in on the future. I don't know if you saw Brooke Rollins, our agricultural secretary, ringing around the rodeo loop carrying a large American flag right on the mall in Washington, D.C., celebrating the West, celebrating the pioneering spirit of Americans.
Absolutely. She is a real patriot. Secretary, let me get your take on the grid, because you have warned about grid reliability. And it's going to be a hot weekend. We know that we just heard from the weather folks, going to be 100 degrees potentially on Saturday throughout the Northeast. Where are Americans most at risk of potentially seeing power shortages? Should we be worried about that this weekend? And what about power shortage potential in the future?
Well, the peak demand in this heat wave in the Midwest was yesterday. In the East Coast, Washington, D.C., where I am, that peak demand will be this afternoon or this evening. So it'll be the highest demand ever, summer demand on the PJM grid, the Northeast states. So yeah, it's going to test our system. We don't have all the new capacity on. We should, because of the previous administration, but I think we'll get through it. We just let the utilities run their business with the interests of the ratepayers in mind and not the climate cult gods. So we've given some relaxation for air permits, allow people to use backup generators, allow people to just make intelligent decisions. But it'll be closer than I would like, but I think we'll skate through today fine. And most importantly, we just got to speed up the building of new capacity.
There's a lesson learned on what he just said. If you live in suburbia, it's not so easy to do if you're living in New York in an urban environment. But if you're living in suburbia or even in a rural area, especially in the rural area, you understand this. If power goes out, you need backup generation. A lot of times these backup generators can be charged and or with gasoline, some sort of backup generation is important. But at the societal level, we need backup energy sources. It's not just oh, we're going to have solar panels and windmills. We need coal and natural gas, right? The liberal policies will only make us weaker, not more anti-fragile. So the lesson learned here is learn how to become anti-fragile. Be robust, be able to weather, quote, the storm.
So we can bring new factories, new jobs, new opportunities to Americans and drive prices down instead of up.
Yeah, you're right. You could also use Congress's help with some permitting, codifying the president's executive orders. Secretary, real quick before you go, if Congress gave you one permitting reform tonight, which project would you get built immediately?
Oh, the Constitution pipeline. They'll take Pennsylvania gas through the state of New York, lower prices in all 6 New England states and in upstate New York. That's just a no-brainer. That project should be under construction already. I hope it'll be under construction in the next 6 or 12 months. Just lower everyone's prices and expand people's job opportunities. It's amazing.
My understanding is that Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, is trying to prevent that from happening. Why? Because she's a liberal and she doesn't like natural gas. You know, big energy companies in the U.S. must be bad. But she doesn't realize that it's the petrochemical industry that's tied to the energy industry, tied to oil, that creates all of her mascara and all of that cosmetics that she plasters on her face. She wouldn't have those cosmetics if it wasn't for oil.
That wants to stand in front of that.
All right, Secretary, did I interrupt you? Did you want to add one more comment? Thank you so much for being here.
No, I was just going to say the working families tax cut that we did last summer, we talked a lot about the tax reduction, but it also had significant regulatory reforms in that are allowing us to do a lot of the positive changes we're doing today. So yes, we need Congress working together with the administration to unleash American prosperity.
Absolutely. The big, beautiful bill had an incredible...
Please go to my store at the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the zeolite. This will help to detoxify your body. Now, there's other ways to detoxify your body from my store. You can detoxify your body taking the barley, heirloom barley, or the gladiator barley. But another great way to detoxify your body is to take the zeolite. 3 small drops underneath your tongue, drink filtered water. Do that daily. This is the type of zeolite that you can take every day. Not everybody's zeolite, you can do that. This one, you can. Now, 3 small drops underneath your tongue, drink the filtered water, and it'll bind to heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals and allow you to urinate them out within 6 to 8 hours. Now, if you're looking for a heavier detox and you only want to do that once a year, this is what you should do. 5 to 10 small drops underneath your tongue, drink the filtered water, do that daily until the bottle's done, and then do that once a year or twice a year. But I recommend the daily way to do it. I also recommend clean your house. Look around. Take a look at the cleaning supplies and the paints that you may have and the pesticides. And if you need those materials in your home, in your garage, or in your basement, make sure you put them in double layered containers. And when you do that, you're reducing the degassing, so you're reducing your daily exposure. A lot of people don't realize this, that you're exposing yourself to toxins just by storing certain types of supplies in your home. So pay attention to that. Make sure you drink filtered water and stay away from processed foods. You want to reduce your exposure and take 3 small drops of zeolite a day. Drink filtered water. If you have pain, like arthritic pain, muscle pain, tension headache, bruising, or a sprain, use Super Strong Relief. It's a topical. It works within 90 seconds. It's a great way to temporarily relieve the pain. So if you're into sports or if you have arthritis, I highly recommend Super Strong Relief. Collagen. Collagen is very important for your skin, your nails, your hair, your musculature, your bone density, even your joints. This is a month supply. Take it every day to improve those different systems, especially if you have a sports injury or arthritis. You need to work at that joint and remodel it. This collagen will give you the building blocks to help to remodel your joint. And you do some light resistance training, some stretching exercises regularly, not too much, and you can slowly rebuild the joint. And another great supplement that you can stack with the collagen and stack with the super strong relief is the collagen. Collagen, what it will do is it will help to stop pain for individuals that have a sports injury with a joint or arthritis. It'll help to block the pain gatekeeper called NAV 1.7. It will also block EP4 and reduce inflammation, block MMP3 and MMP13 to reduce the erosion of the joint. Because over time, when you have constant inflammation, there's a feedback loop and it erodes the joint. So you want to block that. Collagen blocks that. And collagen will help to recruit the building blocks that you need to remodel the cartilage and to remodel the cushioning of the joint. So please go to my store, take the collagen every day, and do this simple exercise. Whatever joints that you have pain in, open up the joint up to the pain level and slightly a little bit more. Count to 20 or 30 seconds. And then release, wait a little bit, and repeat. Do that 3 times every day. And what will happen is that you're going to be helping to remodel the joint. You're creating a micro signal, a growth signal in this area of pain, and you're slowly remodeling. So this is a great way to help to rebuild that joint. Take the collagen, it blocks those different enzymes and helps to recruit the building blocks. The collagen has the building blocks that you need. And any pain that you may have, you can temporarily block it by taking the super strong relief. So this is if you have a sports injury or arthritis. And over time, you'll notice that you'll have more articulation with less pain. Takes time. The longer you've had the problem, the longer it's going to take. But it does work. You can also remodel osteoarthritis by taking a certain type of protocol tied to K2, MK7 with D3. But that's for a different show. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great supplements that I offer, and pay attention. If you do what I'm telling you to do what I'm doing, you're going to slow down the aging process, and it's affordable, and it's customizable. And I've been doing this for a very long time. I've been doing this since I was 16 years old. And over time, better supplements have come onto the market. Our understanding of sports medicine has increased. Our understanding of geriatric medicine has increased. My own personal knowledge has increased. And I've been able to tweak this to a point that it's affordable. So please, go to my store, get the great supplements, stack it the way I'm telling you to. And you don't need to be Brian Johnson, the tech bro that's a billionaire that's spending $2 million a year to try to prevent him dying, prevent death, and that he's going to live forever. He's going to be spending a lot of money, and it's not going to work. But the thing is that this is affordable, and you're targeting all of the important aspects of aging. And it's a holistic approach. It's about proper diet and exercise, proper sleep, mindfulness. Try to be in parasympathetic mode instead of sympathetic mode. So you're calming your nervous system. So please go to my store and take my advice. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day. Have a nice holiday. Be safe. And make sure you use discount 5 to save some money on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.